Awesome things are going on here today. We are curing Coppa the traditional way with no artificial or synthetic preservatives, just salt and some seasoning. I love both curing and eating Coppa, so I'm really excited to be sharing this with you today on how you can do it at home without any synthetic or artificial preservatives. So here are the things that you're going to need to make the Coppa. First, of course, you need the actual Coppa meat. The Coppa is the eye of the muscle that goes from about where the Boston butt is or in the pork shoulder that extends up through the neck of the pig. We're going to talk more about the Coppa in a minute, but for now we'll just keep moving on through the ingredients here. Next up is salt, and of course this is the major ingredient for the curing process. How much salt to use is the big question. The amount of salt we use is based on the weight of the meat. Earlier I weighed this meat on a kitchen scale and it was about 1.5 pounds. The amount of salt we want to use for the meat is 3% of salt to the weight of the meat. If we take 3% of 1.5 pounds and convert that to grams, it's about 20 grams, and that's how much salt's in here. How much salt you use is going to depend on, of course, the weight of your meat, so don't use 20 grams just because I'm using 20 grams. Next up is peppercorn. This is a mix of both black and white peppercorn. This is a couple tablespoons of the mix. Over here we have 3 cloves, 20 juniper berries, 3 bay leaves, and 1 teaspoon of Ceylon cinnamon. Next up is a 1/2 cup of white wine. And lastly, later in the process, we're going to use beef bones. These are our casings that the Coppa's gonna sit in while it's curing. Now back to the Coppa. Of course, this is what it looks like. This is a smaller one, but this is what it looks like once it's butchered out of the pork shoulder. This is what it looks like when it's still attached to the rest of the pork shoulder here. So this is the upper portion of the Boston butt. Down here would be the picnic. Well, in fact, let me just cut to some video and I'll show you what that looks like. Alright, so we have the Boston butt here, the picnic's here. This is also where the Coppa is. So this muscle right here that goes through is what can be cured into Coppa or Capicola. With that out of the way, let's get to the curing now. So we'll start here with our juniper berries, clove, bay leaf, and cinnamon. What we're gonna do, we just want to mash this up. We want to bruise these juniper berries so their flavor comes out, and we want to mash up these cloves. Break up the bay leaves. All the stuff we just mashed up, we'll pour into a little bit bigger bowl. Mix in our salt, peppercorn, and the wine. Mix this up nicely. I put the Coppa in a plastic zip top bag, and this is beautiful, isn't it? Just look at that. That is just beautiful. And I'm just gonna pour the juice right in there with the Coppa. Make sure we get all that good stuff in there. I'm gonna seal it tight and massage it. So you don't have a plastic bag or you don't want to put your meat in with the plastic. I've put it directly in a dish like this before and just stirred it around each day, and it came out just great in the past. So you don't have to use the plastic if you don't want. I like to show you guys options. Alright, so the general idea here is we want it coated all over our Coppa here, and then we can just set it back in our tray. And this is going to go in the refrigerator 1 day for every kilogram. Now this meat's only 1.5 pounds. Again, this is a smaller Coppa. So technically a Coppa this size would only cure for a day. Actually a little less than a day. That sounds too short to me. I'm going to take this out to 2 days. It'll still be fine, trust me. For each day that you have it in your refrigerator, depending on the weight, you just want to re-massage it, make sure that the meat kind of flip it over the other way so it can get in the juices, and put it back. Alright, so this is going to go over here, right next to my bacon that's curing. After I put the Coppa in the refrigerator, I went ahead and carved out the next Coppa from the shoulder. This one came out much nicer, but this one doesn't weigh that much more. It's 1 pound 12 ounces, it's a little bit more. That works out to 794 grams. 3% of that is 23.82 grams of salt. There we are, close enough. The day before you take the Coppas out of the refrigerator, you want to soak the beef bungs. That's the casing that the Coppas are going to go in. Leave the beef bungs in the water overnight, and then the next day they should be ready to go with the Coppas. It's been 2 days. I've pulled the Coppas out of the refrigerator, and it's time to get them in the casings. Before I get the Coppas in the casings though, I need to wash them off. I'm going to rinse them off in the sink and get the juniper berries and any bay leaves that may be stuck on there off. With the Coppas rinsed off, I'm gonna just add a little bit of white wine back to it. And what this does is it adds acidity to the surface of the meat, which will protect it from any pathogens. And I'm just using some gloves here because my camera is not super clean, and switching back and forth between operating the camera and handling the meat, it's just easier for me to keep the gloves on. So I'm just gonna get just a little bit of coating of that wine on there. With that done, it is time to get these in the casing. So you'll notice this is a really long casing for not a lot of meat. So once we get this stuffed in there, we will cut this down. But we're gonna put this casing on over the meat, just like putting your foot into a sock. This casing has a hole in it right there on the side, so we want the meat to go beyond that hole, and then we'll cut the excess off from there. Our Coppa is well within the bung here. I'm gonna go stuff the other one, and then we'll go to the next steps here. The Coppas are in the beef bungs. I have some butcher string here, and we're gonna use it to tie off the ends. So this is what we're going for in the end. My memory card on my camera got full, so I just finished this one before swapping it out. But I'll show you what I did on this one. So again, we're gonna start by tying the end off. And for these knots, I'm using a butcher knot. So I'm creating a little knot on one end of the rope, or on the butcher twine. The side's gonna go under there, over both, and through the loop, if I can get it through. Okay, and then we're just gonna give that a, oops, there we go, nice and tight. Now we'll go to this end, repeat. So we're going to repeat that here, here, and then fill in the gaps. Once we get it like this, we're going to work on the string that goes along the other axis here. So again, we're just going to start with a little knot. We're going to just lift this up a little bit, slide this under, over that one, under this one, and then over this one, under that one. Pull some slack through, flip it, and do the same thing on the other side, coming down the other way. We were under, so we're going to go over, under, over, under, over, and then on this end, we're just gonna do the end of our butcher knot here. Bam. All right, so we're gonna take off this extra here. On either side. Trim up some of these strings. And then we're left with this. What we want to do is take a sterilized needle and poke a few holes in it. That way, as the casing dries, it starts to stick to the meat. When it sticks to the meat, it'll push the air back out. So you're not left with a lot of bubbles in here. Once I get them all tied off, I tie them to a string under the top shelf of my refrigerator. So I loop a string that goes all the way around across the top of this, tie it off, and then that way I have something to tie the Coppas onto. And then I just put a dish, something to catch, because sometimes you get a little drippies. So I'm just gonna put that under there. And I've also had this string fail before, and it's nice to have a clean surface to catch it rather than sitting on this. Those Coppas are gonna hang in the refrigerator for about 8 to 10 weeks. You're gonna know exactly when they're done by their weight. So in 8 weeks, we're gonna weigh them, and if they've lost 30% of the original weight, then we know they're cured. So we'll see you guys in about 8 weeks. It's actually been a little bit over 10 weeks now since I put the Coppas in the refrigerator, and they look fantastic. I just weighed them both, and they're both just over a pound. We started with about 1.5 pounds and 1 3/4 pounds. They've definitely lost 30%, and in fact, they're both over 30% weight reduction. It's fine that they've gone over 30%, we just don't want to be under 30%. So these guys are both fully cured. Now I just have to peel the bung casing off, slice them up, and eat. Here's the Coppa peeled. Isn't this just gorgeous? It takes a few minutes to get that bung casing off, but I start it by just slicing here, and that gives me an edge to rip the casing off. So without further ado, let's slice this up. And now, after weeks and weeks of waiting, the time to eat has finally come. Here we go. That mild porky flavor in the background mixed with the subtle notes of the spices. I can taste that cinnamon, juniper, the creaminess of the fat. Saltiness is subtle. It's definitely not too salty. This would go great on a charcuterie board with some cheese, mustard, jams, whatever it is that you like. Joining us now for a second opinion is Little Buddy, our official taste tester here in the Grass-Fed Homestead. Little Buddy, here is some Coppa. So go ahead and take a bite and let me know what you think.
Million out of a million. Super good. Has a tinge of salt to it. I love that. Makes it taste really good.
So that is how I cure Coppa at home. I hope this video has inspired you guys to give this a shot. If you received any value out of this video, please consider hitting the like button and subscribing if you haven't already. If you'll excuse me now, I'm going to eat some more Coppa, so I will see you guys in the next video.